Hey guys, welcome back. So today we're out at the range to talk about a rifle that's kind of similar to the rifle you see sitting here, but different. Now, I love the SIG Spear. I love the MCX. I've been talking about the rifles for quite some time, but they're short stroke piston guns. They're based loosely on the AR-18 or AR-180. We've done videos talking about all of this. But there's another rifle out there that's kind of similar with the same lineage, same basic design principles, but instead of being short stroke gas piston, which these are fine, very mild shooting, nice shooting rifles, but instead of being a short stroke gas piston, is a direct gas impingement rifle. That's kind of cool. Now, if you follow the channel, you know that we're fans of DI. DI is a really great system. With our testing of the BCM rifle, we're debunking the notion that because it poops where it eats, that somehow it gets dirty fast and stops working and needs special space-age lubricants to work. I think we've disproven that already. But there's other attributes to the DI system, like a slightly nicer recoil. It doesn't have that same punch that a gas piston rifle can typically have. So let's take a look at this rifle that comes to market several $100s less than the rifle you see here, and it's really cool. Let's take a look at the CMMG Dissent. A lot of folks ask me, how can I get involved in the firearms business in that particular community? And one of the best ways to do that is to become a gunsmith. Every gunsmith I know is just overbooked with work. It's a very good living. And so if you would like to become a gunsmith, you need to go to a gunsmithing school or become an apprentice for an existing gunsmith. But Modern Gun School is an accredited college that also works with veterans in the GI Bill, where you can go and get a degree from accredited college in gunsmithing and then go out and start your own gunsmithing business, which I think is a really great option. Again, throughout my entire life, gunsmiths have always been able to earn a really good living, assuming they have a really strong work ethic. So please check out Modern Gun School. I do have a link in the video description below. All right, guys, so this is the CMMG Dissent. This one's chambered in 7.62 by 39, but what's really cool about what CMMG has done with these is that they're available in a very wide array of cartridges. The SIG has a handful of cartridges. There are far more choices with the Dissent, and even oddball cartridges that some people may not even really care much about. So, but it also has 7.62 by 39, 300 blackout, 5.56, 308, even 8.6, and you can get into some really, boutique cartridges beyond that, again, that the rifle is chambered in. But if you take a look at the SIG laying next to it, I guess you can see some similarities and some not. Now, of course, the SIG 7.62 by 39 uses an AR-style magazine, where the CMMG uses a standard AK-style magazine. If I had my preference between the two, I hate these magazines because, in my experience, they're not perfectly reliable. They've gotten to the point where they're acceptable, but not for self-defense, if you will, or serious application. The AK mags are well vetted and obviously a good design, especially when you're talking about P mags that work great with the Dissent. So you have an American-made magazine with an American-made gun. You don't have all the wild variances from all the different AK mags in the world, just run P mags, and they're affordable. So I do prefer that. But again, this is available in different cartridges. So if you get this in 5.56, the Dissent, it's going to have the standard AR-15 style magwell on it. So it'll look a bit more like the SIG. But I'll strip them down and show you what the internals look like side by side. I don't want to go in depth into that, but I will take a picture of what the bolt carrier group looks like from the Dissent versus what it looks like from the SIG Spear. And you're going to see that they have some connections to earlier designs. Again, we've talked about that ad nauseum in previous videos. So what is it about the Dissent that really flips my switch? Well, first of all, it's that direct gas impingement system. Love it. Okay, and again, I'm not averse to it like some people are with the whole poop sword eats thing. We addressed that in the opening of the video, but it also has some nice features to it. We'll go ahead and just get this SIG out of the way because it's kind of blocking your view, I think, a little bit. But it has some nice features to it. First of all, you can generally, with the 5.56 and 7.62 by 39, stuff like that, generally they'll pen to a standard mil-spec AR-15 lower. We'll do a separate video with the larger versions of the gun in 308 and 8.6, which were just recently released. We found that they don't necessarily pen one-to-one to something like an Arrow AR-10 lower. It requires some modifications to the lower, but that's beside the point. With this particular rifle, you could pin this to, like, especially a 5.56 to a mil-spec lower, so you don't need the entire rifle. You can just change out the upper. And the upper, you'll notice that it has a side folding stock because it does not have a buffer tube. again, this is based somewhat on the Eugene Stoner AR-18 design, and when we take it apart, you're going to see those similarities. But you have standard AR-15 style fire controls, and you have very modest controls on it, so you're not going to have full AMB controls over here on this particular rifle, but you do have the ping pong paddle over here. You have a charging handle that's non-reciprocating out front that can be moved over to the other side of the receiver, M-lock rails all the way out, 1913 rail out to the handguard, and the handguard continues that rail all the way out. And if you look inside there, you can see the little gas tube that comes back into the receiver. There's standard AR-15 style fire control in here, but you'll notice that CMMG does use screws to hold those pins in place. Not necessarily on AR-15s, or not a necessity on AR-15s, but a lot of people like the anti-walk pins and things like that, and that's just a standard feature of the Dissent. You'll notice it does have ambi fire controls, and this one has the AK-style mag release, but if you had an AR-15, it would just have a mag button right over there, where in a familiar location. The thing does use standard AR-15 pistol grips, so you can swap this out. The stock is a little bit of a different story. So let's do a little bit of shooting with the gun, take it apart, take a look at it on the inside. Then we're going to talk about its bigger brother as well, which I'll give you a peek at here. This is the new Dissent that would be equivalent to, say, an AR-10, an AR type rifle. But it's a larger format of the rifle, so it's going to use a larger magazine. It's going to be slightly larger overall. And this is basically, if you will, a larger version of this rifle, but also a competitor to the SIG Spear in 308 or in 6.8x51. And we'll talk about that in today's video as well. So let's do a little bit of shooting with the guns. Let's take the rifle apart, take a look at the internals of it, and see how it all works, and just have some fun with it, because the Dissent, again, is a lower cost option to the SIG, but it's its own rifle. It's not necessarily a copy of the SIG in any way. It has the same inspirations, but it's just a really, really cool system. All right, guys, so here's the 7.62x39, the smaller framed version, which is also available in 300 blackout, 5.56, things like that. And then here's the new larger receivered, and this one is chambered in 8.6, but also this is the new upper in 308 as well. Now, this one isn't a registered SBR. This is just a standard rifle, so that's why the barrels are a little bit short on this particular rifle. So 308, 8.6. And what's kind of cool is that, you know, you can just buy different uppers, pin them to your existing lower if you want to switch cartridges, but also you could just swap out barrels and bolts and things like that too. So it gives you some configuration options. But I wanted to show you the two side by side, but we're going to take a look real quick first at the internals of the rifle. So I've dropped the magazine out, checked the chamber, made sure the bolt is clear, and then you're just going to hinge it open like a standard AR-15, if you will. It hinges open, and then this is going to look really familiar to you. All right, so there's the bolt and carrier. And realistically, that's all you really need to do to field strip the gun for field maintenance. Now you can take the bolt and carrier apart very easily. I think you got to take this out. So a little bit more involved to take apart. Once you get the rods out, you can take the cam pin out. It's a very snug fit. Get the cam pin out, and then your bolt comes out. So basically, this is the bolt carrier group disassembled. You can see the gas piston rings back here, much like an AR-10 bolt. And then you have the carrier. Now, this I should point out, you'll notice how big the bolt head is on this and the carrier. Because this is 7.62x39, if you go back in CMMG's history, they did the Mutant, which I've done videos on, I've hunted with, and it's an upsized AR-15, has a larger bolt head, larger lugs to handle the 7.62x39. So these parts would actually be a bit smaller in the 5.56 or 300 blackout. They're continuing on with the tradition of the Mutant by using a larger bolt head, an AR-10 style bolt head, if you will, in terms of its size. But that's just to add, you know, structural integrity to the overall design, and the 5.56 would be a little bit smaller. So if you take a look at the inside, you're going to see it has just kind of a standard looking AR-15 style trigger in there. Of course, we don't have a buffer system or anything like that. So let's set this aside, all these parts real quick. And I'm not going to completely detail strip the bolt and carrier out of the new rifle. Here, I can just use this one since it's already unpinned. You just unpin it, hinge it open, and then the bolt and carrier will slide out. And this is the 308 upper. And here you can see that it's upsized yet again. Oops, I guess, here we go. So you can see there's a little bit difference back here. So they're not the same parts as the AR-10, but if you take a look at the 308 bolt head and look at the 7.62x39, you can see that it uses that same large bolt head. Again, a smaller bolt would be used for 5.56. So the dual recoil spring design and all that stuff is borrowed from the AR-180. Now the SIG on their 308 and 6.8x51 versions uses a mono spring and guide rod, where this uses the original meaning AR-180 style design of that Eugene Stoner design. But you'll also notice that the MCX and the 5.56 will use the dual recoil spring and guide rods as well. So very interesting design. You can see how it is related to the AR-180, also how it's related to the SIG Spear, but again, it's its own rifle. Now, you can pin this upper to an AR-10 lower, but as I've already mentioned, it's going to take a little bit of work to get it to fit. So what is it about the Dissent that kind of flops my mop, so to speak? Well, it has the direct gas impingement compact action that's patent pending, and that is what kind of draws me to it. The direct gas impingement and the compact action, the two combined. What does that really mean? Well, I have one of my favorite AR-10s out here. Now, keep in mind, guys, there's no such thing as a standard AR-10, right? That if there was a standard, it's long since been lost. Everybody just kind of does their own thing. We've done videos about that, showing the different rifles over the years that have come out and all the different recoil systems and bolts and carriers and all the other stuff. But one of my favorite AR-10s is a Daniel Defense. The Daniel Defense is accurate, it's reliable, just extremely well made. And so this is the bolt carrier and recoil system out of my Daniel Defense AR-10, chambered in 308, which is sitting behind me. You'll notice that it has a large, massive bolt and carrier, and this one uses a standard AR-15 style. It comes down in size and uses a standard AR-15 style buffer tube and recoil system. But you'll also notice it has a shortened carbine length buffer, but some AR-10s will have longer rifle length buffers and stuff like that. They're all over the place. But you have a lot of reciprocating mass with the system. You have the big heavy bolt carrier that reciprocates, then you have the recoil system behind it that reciprocates as well. There's a lot of mass moving around inside of the action. But when you take a look at this 8.6, 308 uppers over there of the Dissent, you'll notice it has a very compact action when compared to the AR-10. So the AR-10, when it's ready to fire, the overall length of the system, of course the spring is compressed a bit, is like that, and this is all contained, recoil system and everything. So you have less mass that's reciprocating, and I've found over the years, and there's a lot of different variables, but generally speaking, when you have less mass moving around inside of the receiver, you have less disruption to your sight picture while you're shooting. And it just makes for a more pleasant shooting experience. Usually. Again, there are a lot of different variables there. So this is what I find really, really interesting, because this short action allows you to do things like the folding stock and stuff like that, but then we have the benefit of direct gas impingement, which my DD also has, and so it's just a smooth shooting, short, compact, handy little rifle. Now when it comes to weight, this rifle is not super lightweight, nor is my Daniel Defense. This thing is not lightweight either. The SIG Spear in 308 or 8.6 is a bit of a chunk. They're all kind of big and heavy. This seems a little bit lighter than the others, but it's still a big rifle. But when you shoot this thing, especially in the Thumper 8.6, which we have here, it is so pleasant. And we found that the system is reliable. Jason's been shooting a 5.56 version of the Dissent for quite some time now. He absolutely loves it. And I've been shooting the 7.62x39 and now the 8.6 and 308. And it's just entirely too much fun. I do have to pick up a 5.56. I don't have one. Jason has one. But just overall, such an outstanding rifle to shoot. That, and when you take a look at the price of the 308 version of the Dissent and compare it to the SIG Spear The SIG Spear is like $4,000 and this thing is like $2,200. It's like half the price, which is pretty impressive. So overall, the Dissent is just an awesome rifle. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed taking a look at the new larger Dissent, the large frame, if you will, that chambers larger cartridges like 308-86. I'm sure others will be coming down the pipe as well in the near future because CMMG has a history of chambering their rifles in pretty much all the popular cartridges and some up-and-coming cartridges as well, like the 8.6. If you guys have any questions about the CMMG Dissent, please ask those questions down below. I do try to stick around for the first couple of days after a video goes live to answer any questions you guys may have. Also, right here on YouTube, you got the support and thanks button underneath the video player you're watching right now. You can mash either one of those buttons and help support us right here on YouTube in the age of demonetization. You can also swing by and check us out over on Patreon. There's a link in the video description below. Thank you for 16, oh my gosh, it's 2025, 17 years of support. Please swing by, check out Copper Custom. We'll talk to you guys soon.